Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'll be giving my updated 2026 Senate election map prediction. So let's get straight into it. Let's start off with the safe states for the Republicans. We have Alaska, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, and the state of West Virginia, putting the Republicans' safe states at 49. Now let's go to the Democrats' safe states. We have Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Delaware, Idaho, Colorado, and Oregon, putting the Democrats' safe states at 40. Now let's go to the likely states for each party. Starting off with the Republicans, we have the state of Iowa. There's one reason, or really one main reason that I have this as a likely state, and that's because Joni Ernst is the incumbent senator. Now, Joni Ernst is actually the 13th least approved of senator in the U.S. We look at her approval rating, she has a 42.8% approval rating and a 41.2% disapproval rating. And so she's really only above water by 1.5%. And so because she's not that well liked, I'm going to put that in the likely margin. Another state that I'm going to have as a likely margin is the state of Ohio. Now, J.D. Vance's seat is going to be replaced, and it was replaced by John Husted. And looking at Ohio, we see that Sherrod Brown might run for Senate again in 2026. And if he does run for Senate, I definitely think he's going to make this race a lot more competitive. Looking at the 2022 election, we see that John Husted won by 25 points over Cheryl Stevens in that election. But then looking at the Senate level on the same year, we see that J.D. Vance only won his Senate race by 6 points. And so because this time he's not going to be running for lieutenant governor and he's going to be running for Senate, I think you're going to see it a lot more polarized, where Democrats are going to vote for the Democrat nominee and Republicans are going to vote for the Republican nominee. And so for that reason, I'm going to have Ohio as a likely state for the Republicans. Now let's go to the likely states for the Democrats. Let's start off with the state of New Mexico. Now, looking at New Mexico, back in the 2020 election, Lujan, the incumbent Democrat, only won his race by 6 points. And this was quite an underperformance, considering that Joe Biden won New Mexico by 11 points. And so seeing this underperformance by Lujan, it makes me believe that he's not that well liked in the state of New Mexico. And for that reason, I'm going to have it as a likely state for the Democrats. Another likely state that I have is the state of Virginia. Now, looking back at the 2024 election, we see that Donald Trump did very well in Virginia. He only lost the state by about 6 points. And Virginia right now actually has a Republican governor. So it has shown that it is willing to elect Republicans, but it has to be the right Republicans. Mark Warner is actually a pretty popular incumbent senator in Virginia. He won in 2020. He outperformed Biden by 2 points. But because Virginia has shifted to the right, I'm going to put Virginia as a likely Democrat state. And then I have another likely Democrat state, and that's going to be the state of New Jersey. Now, looking back at the 2024 election, we see that Donald Trump did well in New Jersey. He only lost the state by about 6 points. And if you go back to the 2020 election, Donald Trump lost the state by 16 points. So there's been monumental shifts in New Jersey. And so with that in mind, I do believe that New Jersey is going to be a likely state. I'm pretty sure Cory Booker is up for election. He may be popular, but just because of the massive shift in New Jersey, I'm going to put this in the likely margin. And then we have the state of New Hampshire. Looking at New Hampshire, we see that Kamala Harris only won the state by about 3 points. And that was a big surprise considering that a lot of political analysts considered New Hampshire as a likely state for Harris, but she massively underperformed in this state. Maggie Hassan is the senator that's up for re-election. She won by double digits in 2020, but there has been speculation that she might retire in 2026, and Scott Brown, who's a really good Republican candidate, might run there and make it more competitive. And for those reasons, I'm going to put New Hampshire in the likely Democrat column. Now let's go to the lean states for each party, starting with the Democrats. The first lean state that I have is the state of Minnesota. Now the reason why I have this as a lean state is because Tina Smith has announced that she will not be seeking re-election in Minnesota. And Tim Walz has shown interest in maybe running for Senate. But just because the state has become more competitive and it's going to be an open race, for right now, I'm going to put this in the lean Democrat column. And so that's going to be the only lean state that I have for the Democrats. Now let's go to the lean state that I have for the Republicans. The first lean state that I have for the Republicans is the state of Maine. Now, looking at this approval rating tracker, we see that Susan Collins is not that well liked in Minnesota. We see that her approval rating 49.9%, while her disapproval rating is 42.4%. Now, her approval rating being about like 50% of Maine, considering that Maine is a more Democrat state, is good, but she's still not that popular in the state of Maine. But let's look back at the 2020 election. Susan Collins has been a massive overperformer. Looking at the polls coming up into the 2020 election, we see that the polls showed Sarah Gideon up against Susan Collins in almost every single poll. We see that Sarah Gideon was up by 1 point, 2 points, 4 points, 8 points at times. But then looking at the results at Maine, we see that Susan Collins won by 9 points. She's a massive historical overperformer. And so for that reason, I'm going to put this in the lean margin. And then I have another lean margin, and this time it's actually going to be a flip, and that's going to be the state of Georgia. Now, I am going to put conditions on this lean margin flip, and that's going to be if Brian Kemp decides to run. Now, Kemp, if he runs, would be an ideal candidate for the Republicans, considering he won his governor race in 2022 by almost 8 points. Now, if we look at the polls between Brian Kemp and Ossoff, we see that Brian Kemp is up in every single polls, while the other Republicans, are down in every single poll, some of them also by double digits. And so if Brian Kemp runs, I do think he's going to win by a lean margin. Now let's go to the tilt states. We have two last states, the state of Michigan and the state of North Carolina. Let's start off with the state of North Carolina. Thom Tillis is up for re-election. A new approval rating poll showed that he has a 42% approval rating and a 36% disapproval rating. So he's kind of a mediocre Republican, not too controversial, but also not that well liked. And there has been some rumors that Roy Cooper might run in 2026 against Thom Tillis. Now, for the people who don't know who Roy Cooper was actually the Democrat governor of North Carolina, and he won in 2020 even though Trump won the state. So he was a pretty popular governor of North Carolina. Now, I don't know if he's going to run right now, but looking at Trump's approval rating, we see that he has a 1.5% approval rating. Now, if Roy Cooper does decide to run, I could put it in the Democrat column, but for right now, I'm going to put it into the tilt Republican column. And then we have one last state, the state of Michigan. Now, looking at the state of Michigan in 2026, we see that Mike Rogers is going to run in Michigan. and he ran in 2024 against Alyssa Slotkin, and he only lost by about 19,000 votes. Now you might be thinking, okay, Mike Rogers is an underperformer, so this would not be a good candidate for the GOP, considering that Mike Rogers underperformed Trump in the state. But you do have to acknowledge that Alyssa Slotkin was a massive overperformer. Before she ran for Senate, she was a congresswoman from a swing district, and she won by a big margin, even though this district was very competitive. And so, putting that into mind, that Alyssa Slotkin was a massive overperformer, you can't really blame Mike Rogers. He did a pretty good campaign, but he did end up short. Now, Mike Rogers has said that he's going to be running for Senate in 2026, and it does look like the Democrats are going to pick Pete Buttigieg to run for Senate in 2026. Pete Buttigieg is definitely not the best candidate for Democrats, considering he was from Indiana. He was the mayor of a city in Indiana, and then he has recently moved to Michigan. And so, considering that Pete Buttigieg will be seen by some people as a carpetbagger, Michigan does not like people who are not actually from the state. And if you look at this poll, you see that Rogers is up by 6 points in a hypothetical matchup. So for right now, I'm going to put this in the tilt Republican column, but I'm not saying that things couldn't change. Right now, Trump's approval rating is above water. But if it does dip below, and let's say by the time it comes up to the 2026 midterms, he's below by like 10 points, you're going to see this map change a lot. Probably Democrats will win Michigan, North Carolina, and Georgia. But for right now, considering Trump's approval rating and the candidates who look like they're going to run in these states, this is my updated prediction. Republicans will get 55 seats to Democrats 45. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to smash the like button down below and subscribe. Comment your thoughts or suggestions in the comment section down below. Shout out to Diana Barbie, our first channel member. If you'd like to become a member, you can join near my channel logo. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.